You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hello. My name is Scott Adams, and
Well, we call her Tree, and this is her work.
and this is my work. I work with children. Children are my lights in the world, and they don't get enough art. So I like to come up with projects, and what I do is I have the children draw the picture. This was the what would you see in a community garden? So all of these images are actually drawn by the children. And then I take crayons and I redraw them on big panels of wallboard and color them in. It's kind of like mosaic, paint by number. This is mosaic by number. But it's all of the children's work. And they were awesome. And it's such happy art. I love.
And you brought it together.
And I brought it together.
You coordinated it.
I like to just say that I'm the facilitator, right? Like we talk about how God works through us and we're the vessel. That's sort of the way I feel about my art with these children. Because really it's the children who do it.
Right.
And I just help them to get it down.
And you get it down pretty well.
And
this is a very, very special woman. I feel her energy. And we were talking about suicide. And we're trying to do a cash raise on suicide. And I didn't know, but you have some background with this.
Right. I mean, I just met Anthony, and God brought us together, and I shared with him that I lost my two brothers to suicide. And I'm very involved in the organization, the American Foundation for the Prevention of Suicide. I do their campus walks every year. I raise money. I have a team because for me, what you have to do is you have to talk about it. You have got to talk about it. The statistics of suicide with young people is staggering. And if we're not able to talk about it and talk to these kids about it, because the world today is a very scary place. And we have to we've got to release the stigma. Absolutely. And so one way that we do this is by education. And I'm so glad you talked to me because I've really wanted to get more involved. Like one of my things I'd like to do is go into schools and talk to, because I have personal experience. My first brother was my youngest brother, and I was 35 at the time. He was 33. And I completely lost it. I left my marriage. I left all my children. I did the fight or flight. I couldn't cope. It was just because nothing prepared me for that. And I also felt responsible for my younger brother. He and I were the creatives of the family. He and I were very similar. And then I worked real hard. I did a lot of therapy, did a lot of talking about it, a lot of psychological work, because you got to work through it. If you don't work through that pain, like Carl Jung said, if you don't transform your pain, you're going to transmit it.
Wow. Well said.
And it is so true, isn't it? And then I lost my second brother, my oldest brother, about 4 years ago. I was much better prepared, but still, you're never prepared for suicide. But I'm in recovery from alcoholism 13 years. My brother was in recovery. Have a lot of issues with alcoholism and suicide in my family and depression. And they all suffered that. And for me, what's so sad is they didn't feel like they had a place to go, right? Sometimes the pain of living is too great, right? And, it's given me a lot of strength, right? Like people go, how do you survive this? It gives me, really losing my two brothers makes me want to live more, right? For them and to educate people.
Well, that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to do a cash raise and educate people, and we're trying to prevent it from getting to the next stage. And it's so hard. It's very hard to let the public know how bad it is.
Yes.
And I think you think it might be even worse with the pandemic,
I think
the
it's
kids?
a lot worse. And I think particularly for children, because children, your teenage years are hard as hell anyway. They really are hard. And you're isolated and you're kept from your friends and you don't know. And then if you happen to be somebody like you and me who is very empathic and sensitive in the world, and you pick up on all this that's going on, it's tough. It's not easy.
I grew up in a very happy family. And if you're not in a happy family and you have the pandemic and you're stuck to that home, it's got to be even tougher, right?
Yeah.
You know, like again, in my mind, I see it as I was raised, happy. But just imagine sheltering in place, and you want to be out of there, and you don't have a happy family life. It's got to be really tough on those kids.
Really gotta be.
Especially when they're young, and especially a lot of my work that I talk about is being different, which I am.
Yes.
I think anybody that is creative in a sense, an artist in a sense,
Yes.
it feels that way, and you're attuned to certain things, and it's really difficult to let the public know that we need to help these situations out. With a little this, a little that, and give it to the professionals.
Absolutely.
And the name of the organization, my organization, is called the WIN Foundation, and it stands for Why in Heaven's Name.
Oh, interesting.
So my first book that I wrote, Born Under a Lucky Star, I wrote it 25 years ago, was about a boy in a wheelchair trying to figure out why God made a mistake. And we all know that God doesn't make a mistake, but he felt like a misfit, an outcast. And the end result is the story goes on to tell us basically that God puts these people in our lives so we could learn how to love. Because when you have those special little ones out there, you have to dedicate everything that you have to that, and you learn how to love. And unfortunately, we went just recently to Walt Disney World, and when you have a special one, it's a disruption. It's not like everybody else. You have to wheel them. The kids are going to react. The other kids are going to react to that special one, and there's going to be, some friction going on between everything. And you just say, why can't it be the normal way? And that's because God is coming in and showing us that we need to spend special attention to those ones.
Yes.
And show them love. And then you go through your experience, and I wrote about that too, about suicide, and the end result is you never get over that.
Never.
And what you had to go through, what you had to personally go through, where your whole family, you had to leave your family at that point because you couldn't handle it.
I couldn't handle it. I mean, that's so true. And by talking about it, educating people, it's almost like the stigma of alcoholism is still out there. If we would just be comfortable talking about these things, because I tell you, they touch everybody. It doesn't matter race, creed, color, age, profession, and the statistics are staggering. And as you say, they've gotten worse, and so it just motivates me more to talk about it.
You motivate me.
Oh, that's awesome. It's just so cool that we met.